Hello guys, welcome to another session on TestNG, and in this session we'll further explore the parallel execution functionality in TestNG. Okay, so this time this is not by doing some config change in testng.xml, but by adding an attribute parallel to a data provider. Okay, this doesn't have any uh, impact on how many methods to run parallelly, using how many threads, etc., and so on, but this will have an impact on the only methods or a method that uses this data provider. Okay, if it is confusing, then let us see an example to get the clarification on that. Okay, so this is the same class which we used for parallel execution, where we gave multiple new attributes to suit tag and try to execute these methods parallelly. Okay, I have cleared all that new attributes or lines of codes that are written for that session, and they took a clean class which contains only methods and a data provider. Okay, and like I said, we have a data provider in this class, right, named login test data, and we want to use this test data for testing our login functionality. Okay, now let us see, even before doing the parallel execution, let us see what this data provider is passing to this method, and how many times this login test is being executed. Okay, since we have this data provider here, we want to specify this test method like to use that data provider, and for that what we will be doing is we will be giving a data provider attribute or a parameter, and we will give the name of that data provider. So by doing this, we are saying this method to use data passed from this data provider, and to this login test method, since we have username and password are the two values that we are fetching from each row of this data provider, we will be writing two arguments here as string username and string password, and we will see what data is being pulled. We will add them here in the uh, print messages. Okay, so performing user login using user name, right? So in the previous session when we discussed data provider, we have seen like what these double quotes mean, what this plus mean, right, etc. So you can refer that video, or we can simply try to understand what is happening over here. Okay, and password plus password. Okay, so let me briefly explain, right? So this is the string, so whatever given in double quotes will be printed as is, and plus is the uh, sign we use to concatenate any two strings. So here username is a string, that is what defined here as an argument. So when we give this plus operator, what does that mean is concatenate. We are saying attach these two strings together, and similarly following that attach another string as password, and for that further attach another string, that is password, which is this one, and this username and passwords are getting this method is getting from this test data provider, and this test data provider has three rows of data, right, our 2 by 3 matrix, and each time it will fetch the entire data from the each row. So First time it will pick up these two values as usernames and passwords. Second time it will fetch these two values as usernames and passwords. Third time it will fetch these two as usernames and passwords. Likewise, how many number of rows we have here, those many number of times this method will execute. Okay, so that is briefly about how this data provider works, right? So now we want to run this only method, right? We do not want to run all these methods. We simply want to see how many times this method is getting executed, and for each execution what is the data it is picking up, right? So let us add it to a groups called login, right? DROUPS groups, and groups login, and we'll add that groups attribute here, and groups run, and include name is login, and in the tag the same line. Okay, now we have this login, and what we are saying is TestNG to run the tests, right, which are named with a group called login. So since this is the only method which has that login named, so it will run only this particular method. Okay, let us run this and see. Okay, so now it has printed the same message what we are expecting. It has printed the same thing, and it said like performing performing user login using username John and password 1111, that is this first data. Second is Tom1234 and the password, and third is Mary 1234 as the password, right? So this is expected. So this is how it will execute line by line or row by row from a data provider. Okay, now we want to see how it behaves by adding an attribute that is parallel. Okay, parallel is equal to true. It takes either true or false as the values, so we have given true. So now let us try and see like what is getting printed, and to compare with our previous result we will take a screenshot of these messages in the order they were executed before without giving that parallel attribute. Okay, now let us run the test again. Right, now it says John, password, Tom. Okay, it is in the same order in which we have seen it executed before. So now let us run one more time. I'm expecting this order to change, so it shouldn't be we want to prove that these are getting printed parallelly, right? Okay, now we can see, right, first Tom got picked up, then John, John, and then Mary. So this is not the order in which the data is passed, or it in the order when we haven't given the parallel attribute. Okay, since we have given the parallel attribute to that, first time the method picked up John and password 1111 to execute, and the second time it took the user Tom, right? But the first one, before it completed, the second one which executed started executing parallelly, finished up first, and it printed this message that Tom being used. Tom has been already used while John is still being used, right? So now that printed first, and John was printed second, and Mary the third. And if we run one more time, now this time if we see, John was picked up first, Mary was picked up second, Tom was picked up third. So the order is changing. If we run one more time, again it is the same order: Mary, John, Tom, Mary, Tom, John, right? Now the order changed again, right? So this means that Tom, Mary, John, Now the sequence has again changed sequence of the data in which it completed changed. So parallel execution picks up the data rows though one by one, but whatever finishes first will get printed first, and then the parallel execution will move on to the next available data, right? So if we remove this parallel is equal to true, no matter how many times we run, it will be John, Tom, Mary in the order that data will be used, right? John, Tom, Mary. Running one more time. John, Tom, Mary. John, Tom, Mary. So no matter how many times we run without that parallel attribute, this is the sequence of the order in which the data is will be picked up and executed. Whereas if we use that attribute parallel, so though it start with John, parallelly it will start Tom, and parallelly it will start Mary, and whatever data, right, whatever the data this method uses and completes execution, that will get printed first, then second one, then third one, like that, right? Now see Tom, John, Mary, because we used parallel attribute. Okay, so this is how we can achieve parallel use of data use via a data provided attribute parallel. Okay, see you in the next video.